Welcome students to Kaiju 101. This is the first in an informative video series that will teach you the ins and outs of the Kaiju genre. Today's lesson will be on the king of the monsters himself, Godzilla. Godzilla is the most famous Daikaiju of all time. Daikaiju is a Japanese term that loosely translates to giant monster. Its counterpart, kaiju, lacks the dai or giant prefix and roughly translates to strange beast, but is also synonymous with monster in most translations. Godzilla gained his popularity and name recognition from his movies, of which there are 32 released, with 4 more on the way at the time of this writing. Godzilla holds the world record for the longest running film franchise, a total of 64 years currently. Of the 32 films released, 30 have been produced by Japanese film studio Toho Company Limited, who owns the Godzilla character and his cast of creature co-stars. The other 2 are Hollywood adaptations who licensed the character from Toho. In addition to the films, Godzilla has been the star of many television shows, both Japanese and American, has appeared in numerous comic books and manga, and countless video games. Godzilla's popularity has seen him rise to become a national icon in his home country of Japan. Godzilla can be seen in all sorts of places, from advertisements to public sculptures, and of course, in stores all over. In 2015, Godzilla was even awarded a citizenship in the Shinjuku Ward of Tokyo and became a cultural ambassador to the country. For Godzilla's origins section, we'll divide it into 2 parts, in-universe and real life. In-universe, Godzilla is a mutated prehistoric reptile of varying origin depending on the film you watch. In some movies, he's an intermediary reptile related to both land and sea reptiles that slept underground for 2 million years until being awakened and mutated by an atomic bomb. In some others, he's a member of the Godzillasaurus species that survived until modern times on a small island in the South Pacific that was exposed to nuclear tests and transformed into Godzilla. The first American reboot portrayed the monster as a mutated iguana in the French Polynesian Islands. In the 2014 reboot, he's an ancient prehistoric life form from the Permian period that rested in hibernation until it awakened via a nuclear submarine. In Shin Godzilla, he's an ancient sea life form that absorbed and resisted nuclear material until it was able to grow legs and come ashore. The most recent incarnation of the character is actually a highly evolved species of plant life, left untouched for 20,000 years on a post-apocalyptic Earth. In real life, Godzilla was the brainchild of Japanese producer Tomoyuki Tanaka. In the early 1950s, while on a plane flying home from Hong Kong in the wake of a failed joint production between Toho Studios and a Chinese studio, Tanaka looked out at the sea and wondered what would happen if a giant monster rose from the ocean and attacked Tokyo. Tanaka was inspired by a trade ad in a magazine for the 1953 film The Beast from 20,000 Fathoms, another atomic monster picture, as well as the Lucky Dragon No. 5 incident, in which a Japanese fishing trawler sailed too close to an atomic bomb test, resulting in a contaminated fish supply and a crew of radiated sailors. The original Godzilla film was produced and filmed in the spring and summer of 1954 and released on November 3rd of that year. The film was a box office success, and work immediately began on a sequel, but we'll get more into that in a later video. As many a fan will tell you, the original film was very serious in tone, and the monster was a metaphor for the atomic bomb and the horrors of continued atomic testing. Destruction scenes in the aftermath of Godzilla's rampages are eerily similar to scenes that frequented Japan during wartime. While the serious nature is present in the original film, subsequent sequels lessen the monster's metaphorical origins. Godzilla would still, through the eyes and mind of each film's director, represent something. For example, in Godzilla vs. Hedorah, Godzilla battles a monster of pollution in what is a visual wake-up call to the polluted factory lands of Japan. And in Shin Godzilla, the monster's unpredictability and unexpectedness was a mirror of Japan's governments during the Fukushima nuclear disaster. The design of Godzilla is based primarily on that of dinosaur paintings in magazines, particularly those by Charles R. Knight. Artists combined the traits of a Tyrannosaurus, a Stegosaurus, an Iguanodon, and an alligator to create the look for Godzilla. In practically all of his appearances, Godzilla has been the same basic creature, an upright, reptilian creature with humanoid arms, a long tail, and a row of spines or fins running down his back. Godzilla's skin is rocky and bumpy and was designed to resemble keloid scars, seen on survivors of the atomic bomb. Godzilla's color is commonly thought to be green, but in actuality only a handful of incarnations of the big guy have been green. In most of his on-screen appearances, Godzilla is a charcoal gray or black coloration, and in fact, the original suit was reportedly brown in color. Godzilla has seen a fair amount of redesigns and alterations throughout his history. The original design for the first film was heavyset and lumbering with a slightly hunched position and a shorter tail. Due to the suit's bulky design, suit actors Haruo Nakajima and Katsumi Tezuka could only maneuver about in the costume for a few minutes at a time. There was little to no visibility in the suit either, so moving around was quite a chore for the stuntmen. As the films went on, Godzilla's look changed. In the first sequel, the suit slimmed down, much to the comfort of the suit actor, to allow for easier choreography during fight scenes. As more films were released, Godzilla's image softened, as did his character. The eyes and heads grew bigger, the fangs were removed, and the tail thickened. It wasn't until 1984 that the monster went back to his frightening routes for the return of Godzilla. Throughout the 1990s, Godzilla became much more bulky in design, and the suits remained mostly the same. The most radically altered suit came in 1995's Godzilla vs. Destoroyah, where the monster gained large translucent patches of orange and red to signify the character's condition at the time. However, in 1998, the paradigm paradigm of what Godzilla could look like shifted dramatically. For the first American reboot, producers Dean Devlin and Roland Emmerich sought to completely change the look of the monster. The Kaiju's upright position was abolished and changed to resemble that of a more scientifically accurate dinosaur. The head was more boxy than ever before, the arms moved more toward the body, the legs were thinned out, and the feet were increased in width. This design was the most radical change the character would see until the mid-2010s. For the new millennium, the Japanese saw to bring back the classic design, yet still alter it enough for new audiences. The monster became more edgier, the spines increased in size and were more jagged, the mouth more like an alligator's, and the teeth were bigger, and the claws on both hands and feet were sharper. For the third film in the new Japanese series, the design shifted back to a more traditional look, with elephantine skin, enormous feet, rounder spines, and a squared head. The fangs from the original 1954 design were brought back, and the eyes were made a ghostly white to signify the beast's new origins as a vengeful and possessed monster. The next designs were a nice middle ground of the two previous ones, sporting the sharper look but with the extremities toned down. Godzilla even received a cobra-like hood on his neck. The next Godzilla design for Godzilla Final Wars in 2004 harkened back to the first sequel suit with a slender shape better suited for the martial arts-inspired fight scenes in the film. This would also be the last official Godzilla design to be portrayed primarily as a man in suit. The next four designs would be portrayed entirely via computer animation. For a cameo appearance in the drama Always Sunset on 3rd Street 2, a new Godzilla design was created, based primarily off the ghostly appearance of the monster in Godzilla Mothra King Ghidorah. This was the first official Godzilla design to be animated entirely via CGI. For the 2014 American reboot, the creative team spent a lengthy amount of time deciding the new look of the King of Monsters. To talk about the entire process behind this version's creation would take another video in of itself. The base design incorporates elements of the classic Godzilla, various marine animals like iguanas, grizzly bears, and birds of prey. This design also prominently features gills on the side of the neck. Yet another extremely radical design process was established for the next Japanese Godzilla film, Shin Godzilla. The monster's design recalled the original film's dark tone and showcased a grotesque and horrifying creature. The arms are shriveled and close to the body, which itself is massive, dry, and cracked. The tail is extraordinarily long, a feature co-director Shinji Higuchi cited as being only possible due to the computer animation. The feet are more dinosaur-like, and the face is a mishmash of flesh and needle-like teeth with tiny, eel-like eyes. And finally, Godzilla's most recent redesign in the first ever animated Godzilla film, he is very robust in structure, with visible muscles and leaf-like spines referencing his origin. The creature's skin is very smooth, almost vine-like in shape, and the limbs are thinner. Godzilla's most recognizable characteristic is undoubtedly his ability to breathe fire. However, what he fires is actually not fire at all. In most depictions, it is actually a stream of radiation. This beam is known by many names: thermonuclear breath, radioactive beam, fire breath, but the most commonly used is atomic breath. The beam is mostly blue in color, although it has been seen in orange, red, white, and even purple. Another of Godzilla's most famous abilities is his super regenerative powers and durability. Godzilla is nigh invulnerable and resists all forms of modern military weaponry, with the black sheep of the flock being the 1998 American incarnation, who was actually destroyed fairly easily by F-18 jet missiles. Godzilla's other known abilities vary by incarnation, such as a nuclear pulse, great physical fighting ability, and even the power of flight. Despite his enormous amount of strengths, Godzilla is not invincible. In the original film, the monster was killed with a device known as the Oxygen Destroyer. Created by scientist Dr. Serizawa, the Oxygen Destroyer, as the name implies, eliminates the molecular structure of oxygen when submerged and activated in water. This device was only used once, as the weapon's secrets were lost when Dr. Serizawa allowed himself to be killed when using it against Godzilla. Like Godzilla's powers, his weaknesses also vary throughout the films, ranging from electricity to ice to specially created chemical formulas. Godzilla's unmistakable roar has seen just as many variations and redesigns as the monster himself. The very first version was created by composer Akira Ifukube by rubbing the strings of a contrabass with a resin-coated glove. The sound was edited and revamped into the iconic roar you know today. The roar even has its own set of onomatopoeia. Aside from the generic roar, the Marvel Comics incarnation was written as mrah, and in the Dark Horse and IDW comics it became skrionk or skrionk. In Japan, the officially recognized sound is gyoun. Godzilla's personality is that of his moniker. He is the king of all monsters and is generally seen as the biggest and most threatening monster of all. He almost always wins his battles and is rarely killed by another monster. In the Japanese films, Godzilla is usually referred to with gender-neutral pronouns equivalent to it. In America, the nickname King of the Monsters says it all. Godzilla's flip-flopped allegiances more time than a professional wrestler. In most of his appearances, he is a chaotic neutral force of nature that generally ignores humanity. However, in the late 60s and 70s, he became a superhero almost, and a defender of the Earth from evil space monsters. Very rarely does the monster ever interact directly with humans. Godzilla is a very complex character, and I'm sure this lesson was a lot to take in. Rest assured, the following videos will most likely not be as lengthy or as in-depth. The best way to understand what Godzilla is to simply watch the films. At the end of each Kaiju 101 video, I thought it would be fun to give a little quote-unquote homework assignment, basically recommendations of things to do or watch in order to fully absorb these lessons. This lesson's homework is to watch the original 1954 Godzilla film. Thanks so much for watching, and I hope those of you who are new to the Kaiju genre learned something new with this series, and will stick around for more lessons. See you next class.